Hey readers, welcome back to Reading Realm and Happy New Year. This will be posted on January 1st of 2026, which is wild to say. I cannot believe it is already 2026 as of when this video goes up. It's wild. My birthday is at the very end of the year, so it always feels really sudden to be like, oh, I just turned this age and now I'm turning this next age this year. But welcome to the first video of 2026. This is definitely not posted on the usual uploaded day, but I figure I should start the new year off with an actual reading list on New Year's Day, because then everyone will know what to expect and I will have the full year from January 1st to work on reading these books. So I did not finish my reading list for 2025. Life was hectic, school was hectic, internship was hectic, everything was going on. So I did not, unfortunately, have enough time, but that means that I am carrying over 23 books from last year's reading list that I did not finish into the new year, including 3 that I am in progress reading, and I just have not actually finished enough to review them. So I'm excited to share with everyone what I'm going to be reading this year. And so the first 23 will seem familiar, and I will say I, for the most part, am going to be trying to prioritize finishing the ones from last year before reading new books for this year. There are a few exceptions to that. If I feel like a certain book I want to have done by a specific time, I may try to push it up in the year, even if I haven't finished the ones from last year. But my goal is to actually finish my reading list this year. We'll see how it goes. One of my New Year's resolutions is to spend a lot more time on this channel, both actually trying to keep my upload schedule every week, so I will be trying to do every Saturday, but also just spending more time reading in general, and in turn using that time reading to go towards this channel as well. So, should be familiar. I have so many books around me. I have 42 on my reading list this year, which is the same that I had last year after I added the 4 halfway through. So, we have Wicked by Gregory Maguire, as well as book 2, Son of a Witch. There's so many. Book 3, A Lion Among Men. This one is also so much smaller, because it's not from the same set, so I got these just secondhand, so some of my books in the series look weird together. And then Out of Oz, also the final one. So I'm really, really excited to read these. My mom has actually read all of them last year. I loaned them to her because she was interested in them, and apparently they end quite differently than the stage play / movie does, so I'm really interested to see all of that. That seems very interesting, and I'm excited. And then the next one that's being carried over is The Ministry for the Future by Kim Stanley Robinson. This one is another one that I was excited to read, and I just never got around to it, even though I really wanted to. But I'm excited to hopefully read it and finish it this year, because this is one of my mom's favorite authors. And she gave me this book and said it's one of the really good ones, so that seems like a good thing to read. And then How to ADHD, again, this is by Jessica McCabe, or McCabe, I don't know how it's pronounced, but this one I think I could really use, and I said that before, but I definitely think that this would be helpful for me to read. I think part of the reason that I did not prioritize it very much last year was because I was struggling with autistic burnout for a lot of last year, and so I feel like at the time I was like, I don't need to read more about what I should be doing to try and be better. I need to just, like, focus on getting through the day. And so I think that's one of the reasons why this one was pushed off a little bit. But I think it would be really helpful for me, and hopefully others who have ADHD. I gave this to my dad, so he has a copy as well, because he was recently diagnosed as well. So I think that hopefully will be informative and helpful for both of us. And then another nonfiction one, The YouTube Formula. And I will say this one, I think, was published in, what is the copyright? It's just got a ton of reviews in front, not the copyright. Where the heck? 2021 this was published, and I have heard things where the YouTube algorithm and how it works has kind of changed recently, and I don't know exactly how recently that was. As a person posting videos, I maybe should look more into that. So I don't know how much of this is outdated, if that has happened more recently than that, but I'm sure it will be entertaining as well and educational, hopefully, because I do run 2 YouTube channels, and as I'm going to be announcing, actually the day this goes up, I am launching a 3rd channel that focuses more on sort of my daily life as an autistic person. So I will link that in the description, because that I have been sort of thinking about for months, but kind of keeping secret until I was sure about some things, but I will be announcing that. So running 3 channels, I feel like, especially now that I'm getting closer to graduation and I'm sort of trying to take YouTube a little bit more seriously on my gaming channel and slightly less just for fun, super casual, and actually trying to put more time and energy into it, I feel like this would be a helpful book for that, and for this channel as well, even though this one I definitely have been taking more seriously compared to the gaming one, in terms of just putting more time into the thumbnails and the editing and all that, versus just recording a game for fun and posting it. And then 27 Hours, this was one of the ones that I was really excited about last year, and then I just never finished it, and I wanted to read it during Pride Month, because this is one that I'm pretty sure the protagonist is non-binary, or something like that. So I wanted to read it during that, and when I couldn't, I was like, I'll move this to next year. So this one, I absolutely love the cover of. I think it's such a beautiful cover. This is by Tristina Wright. I really want to read this one. I cannot wait. And then we have 2 more Natasha Preston books, which we'll see how this goes, because as I have said in many reviews, her books always end in ways that bother me. So we have Awake and The Party. Also, there are flowers on this one. They're just very small. They're forget-me-nots, because her books always have a flower on them. And there is a 3rd that I'm carrying over that I will talk about a little farther into this list, because it's one of the ones that I'm currently reading. So it is in the section where I have the in-progress ones. And then we have Thinking in Pictures by Temple Grandin. This is another of the autism books that I am supposed to be reading to then give to my parents. And I think that this one is hopefully going to be a very... I don't know what the right word is, really, because I feel like without having read it, I can't say for sure, but I'm hoping this will be kind of an uplifting one, because this particular person was very, very accomplished in her field despite being autistic. So I think reading about that as kind of like a successful person versus sort of the stereotypes that autistic people don't succeed as much, I think will hopefully be really, really nice to read about. And then I have Uniquely Human. So this is by Barry M. Prizant, I think, which is a person with a PhD. This is one of the few ones that I have that is by a person with a PhD because, as I've said before, I do feel like hearing from actual autistic people rather than psychologists in most cases is better. I do not know whether this author happens to have a PhD and is also autistic himself, but I am not sure. But this one did feel pretty good about not coming at it too much from that perspective and kind of coming at it from the perspective of this isn't a thing that needs to be cured, it's a thing that needs to be accepted, which I think is kind of the main reason why some of the psychologist perspectives I don't like as much. So I'm excited to read that. And then more autism books. Untypical. This is by Pete Warmby. Its subtitle, which is actually more brightly colored than the actual title, is How the World Isn't Built for Autistic People and What We Should All Do About It, which I think is personally a great subtitle. I like that. And I also like the rules on the back, which I'll talk about more when I review it, actually, because they're just amusing. And I think it kind of, just from the little bit I've read from this author's synopsis on the back of the two books that I have, it seems kind of like he slightly playfully talks about autistic issues in a way that makes it kind of more lighthearted but doesn't actually make light of the serious topics, which I think will be nice to see. And then we have another PhD person, Devon Price, with the book Unmasking Autism. This is another one where normally I don't go for PhD books as much, except that I've heard a lot of autistic people actually saying that this one is very good. So the fact that it's endorsed, wait a minute, it's actually on the back, endorsed by this author. I never noticed that before. But the fact that a lot of other autistic people are saying that this one is good and provides an accurate representation, I think is definitely very good. And I think if you're going to try and learn about autism, you should look for sources that are vetted by actual autistic people. And then another one by Pete Warmby. What I want to talk about, which I'm also excited to read because it's specifically about autistic special interests, which I definitely have, and they definitely shape my life, and the subtitle of this one is How Autistic Special Interests Shape a Life. And I have given this now to my aunt and uncle so that they can understand why I overshare and go off on tangents about certain things. So, very excited about that one as well. And then, different, not less, this is by Chloe Hayden, which is about neurodiversity in general, I believe. I think it is about not specifically autism, not specifically ADHD, but I think it just kind of involves a spectrum of different things that are under the neurodiversity umbrella, so I think that that is going to be very interesting as a person with two different types of neurodiversity, I guess you could say. And then this is one that actually is not one that I'm giving to my parents when I finish it, which is Autism for Adults, and then it says an approachable guide to living excellently on the spectrum. So I think that this one is more for myself rather than them. If I find anything interesting in it, I will definitely share it with my parents. But also I just noticed that Temple Grandin actually commented on this one, or said something about it, and said, Daniel Jones's Aspie Worlds videos are highly recommended for adults who get diagnosed later in life, which I think is kind of cool. I don't like that she used that term for it, but I do think that it is definitely helpful to have resources for people who are diagnosed, not when they were 5, but when they were older, because I was 14, which is not as old as a lot of people, but it's definitely not as young as many people, so I'm kind of in the middle, and so I got some resources, but definitely not the most. And then moving away from nonfiction, we have The Space Child's Mother Goose, which is by Frederick Winsor with illustrations by Marianne Perry. And this is one that my aunt gave me that was apparently a book that she and my dad grew up with, which seems pretty cool, and I'm excited to read it. I kind of flipped through it, and it seems definitely really interesting, but I haven't had time, so I'm excited to read that pretty soon, hopefully. And then we have My Neighbor Totoro, the novel. So this is text. It's not a graphic novel adaptation or anything, but I'm very excited to read it, and it's very cute, and I love Studio Ghibli, so this book is definitely going to be very fun to read, and a perfect sort of upbeat, nice, fun book to read. And then finally we have the 3 that I am currently in progress reading. So one more nonfiction. We have Sincerely Your Autistic Child, which I am that far into, and I am currently highlighting and annotating for my parents, and so far has been very enlightening in some ways, very validating in some ways, and hard to read in others, and so I will be continuing to read that and review it soon. Then the other Natasha Preston book, The Cellar. So this one is definitely an interesting one compared to some of the other ones I've read by her. The perspectives in this is interesting, and I'll go into that more when I review it, but it's written in a slightly different way than I feel like some of her other books have been written, which I think is very interesting and cool. Speaking of a book with multiple perspectives that I'm also in the middle of, Wind Rider by PC Cast. I reviewed the first 2 in this series last year, Moonchosen and Sun Warrior. They were both very, very good, and I definitely am very much enjoying this 3rd book, and it's great. Also, it has the pages where the pages on the end are uneven. It's a little bit hard to see like this, but I love when books do that, and this book, already I have so much to say, and I'm only this far in, but I cannot wait to read more of it. And then, finally, Earth Called, the 4th in that series, so I have not started this one yet, obviously, because I haven't finished the 3rd, but I'm very, very, very excited to read it, and I'm just hoping that the end of this series is just as good as the first 2 and first 5th of the 3rd have been, so I'm very much looking forward to that. And those are the 23 books that I carried over from last year, and so now from here on in this video, all of these books will be new ones for this year. About a month or 2 ago, I posted a poll asking what books people might be interested in seeing me read this year, and I gave an option for 4 different series and an option for 4 different standalone novels as 2 separate polls. And so with 67% of the vote, the series that won is I Am Number 4. This is another series that I have where I was given it as gifts from secondhand. So like half of these books have library codes on it, half of them are like paperback, hardcover. They're just kind of a mix of them, but I do have them all. So that will be I Am Number 4, and then The Power of Six. This one's not a library book, but it is hardcover compared to the paperback one. This was a library book, which is The Rise of Nine. And The Fall of Five, which also was not a library book. What's interesting is it has the series name in the cover, or in the side of it, which I think is kind of fun. Also, I did not say it. This is by Pittacus Lore. I don't actually know how to pronounce his name, but I feel like this book I first was introduced to in A Battle of the Books. I think maybe the same one as A Monster Calls was, but I think it was one of the ones that I didn't read, and someone else on my team did. Okay, so The Revenge of Seven is the next one in the series. And The Fate of 10. And apparently this is a Barnes & Noble exclusive that has blueprints for some of the ships, which is kind of cool. And then this is another former library book. This is United as One, which is the last one technically in the series. And then I have another book that is I Am Number 4, The Lost Files, The Legacies, which I think is short story companion stories to this series, and I sort of briefly researched it a little bit. It doesn't seem like it's part of the main series, and so I think I'm going to read this last, just because I don't know if it's supposed to be prequel short stories or not, and I don't want it to spoil anything in the main series. So if you know where this book is supposed to happen in the series, let me know, because I don't know. As of right now, I'm planning to read it after I read the rest of the series, but if that's wrong, I will change that and do it in another order, so let me know. And then in the poll for the standalone book, a lot fewer people actually voted on that one, but it ended in a tie with 25% for each of the 4 books, and so I decided to add them all, since I know at least one person out there wants to see each of them. So we have the film comic of Spirited Away. So this is the actual imagery from the movie. Now, the one thing that I think is really fun about this book that is different than any other book that I'm reading this year is it is a Japanese book, so it reads this direction, which I think is very, very fun. And so, even though it is a very dense, solid book of images, it reads the same direction as manga, which I think I am going to very much enjoy this. I love this movie, like I said earlier. I love Ghibli. This is different than the Totoro one because it isn't a novel based on the movie. It is actually the frames of the movie in the pictures. But I'm very, very excited about this one. And I'm really glad someone picked it in the poll so that I can include it on this list. I might have included it anyway, even if it wasn't picked. And then another one we have is The Visitors, and this is by Greg Howard. This is the one that I think I might possibly move up, even if I haven't finished the ones that were carried over from the other year, because this does kind of go with Pride Month, so I might read it with enough time to have it then if I haven't finished all the other ones from last year. So we'll see about that. And then one of the other ones from the poll, The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. Kind of similar to Storm Thief that I reviewed last year. This book I actually did start, and I actually did get maybe a third of the way in years ago, and then I just never had time to read it, so I've kind of forgotten almost everything about it, but I know that it was very interesting when I was reading it. I just unfortunately did not have any time. I will say one of the things that I love about this book that I feel like a lot of people don't notice is that the cover is actually that style of art where it's yarn or string wrapped around like nails or pegs. So it's kind of subtle to see, but if you look really closely, each of those is a piece of thread or yarn going to different pins, which I don't actually know what that style is called, but I think it's very, very cool. And then the final one from that poll that one person at least wanted to see is Girl Gone Viral, and this is by Arvin Ahmadi, and I think that this one seems very interesting. This kind of seems a little bit Ready Player One-ish. It's kind of got that VR world sort of thing from what I know of it, and of course I have not read it yet, so I'm not sure, but it does seem very, very cool. Also, apparently there was a bookmark in there. I don't know if anyone else gets this sense from this cover, but this kind of reminds me, the colors and the sort of lines going across, it reminds me of the musical branding for Be More Chill, which is kind of interesting because I don't actually know how similar this is to that. That isn't quite VR, that's sort of different, but I do think that that's a pretty cool color or cover. I cannot talk right now. And then I just had to do these this year because last year my favorite series, probably my favorite books that I read the whole year, were the books by Stephanie Garber, and when I was reviewing them, I talked so much about this series, which is her first series, which actually comes before that series in the same universe. This is Caraval, so I have to read this year. I've read it all before. It's absolutely amazing, and I loved it back then. I'm so excited to go back and read it now, especially now after recently having read this other series by her, and I cannot wait. I want to start reading this right now, even though I said I'm going to try and finish the ones from last year first. And in the rest of the trilogy, we have Legendary as well. Also, again, I absolutely love her covers. They're so, in a way, simple, but so elegant as well, and just the attention to detail. Oh, it's great. And then Finale, which is technically the last one in this series, but actually when I was buying that other series by her, I discovered that there is a holiday novella of the Caraval world, which I have not read yet, even though I've read Caraval. I got this more recently, so I was like, I need to go back and reread the main series first, but this is the holiday novella Spectacular, which I cannot wait to read this. Also, the back of this book looks really cool too. I cannot wait to read this. And the problem is, it is technically a holiday book, so I feel like I should wait until around the holidays to read it. But I also don't want to wait. So we'll have to see. And then down to the last 3. So I figure with this many books and some of them being pretty long, I did feel like I would like to have had a shorter book or a quicker read in here just so that I can have a break from, if I'm taking a long time to read one of the longer ones, I can still finish a book in the meantime. And I feel like this is kind of a cool book anyway, even though it is very short, which is Stickeen by John Muir. It's glaring a little bit. I think it's better now. But this is a very interesting book that I think I read this when I was very young, or had it read to me when I was very young, but as an environmental science major, as one of my majors, because I'm a double major, we talk about John Muir often, and we have talked about Stickeen as well, and we have read an excerpt from this, and kind of learned about the story surrounding this, so I figured it would probably be an interesting thing to read about the actual book as well, because the excerpt was interesting, and just this whole story is interesting, because it's about this dog that basically traveled across Alaska with John Muir, which, it just is such an interesting story. Also, the illustrations in this are kind of cool because they're pretty simple, but in terms of, like, they're not in full color or anything, but then they also just give so much of a sense of just the glaciers and the mountains and everything. And so I'm excited to read this one, even though it is a lot shorter, and I think it is sort of written as a kid's book, so it is accessible to a younger reader, so it isn't too complex, because sometimes there are short books that are so dense and hard to read versus long books that are easier to read, so that one seems well balanced as sort of a shorter, easier read, and also a kind of fun nonfiction story, because I feel like all the rest of my nonfiction is about more serious things, like either ADHD, autism, or, I guess, YouTube, which I don't know if that's necessarily serious, but it's more educational and less wilderness adventure. And then last year I reviewed a book called I Could Pee on This, which was poetry by cats, and I happen to have the companion book to it that is poetry by dogs called I Could Chew on This. And as you've probably seen in my videos, I have a dog who enjoys hanging out with me when we're recording and stuff like that, and so a lot of these poems, I'm sure, resonate with him, and I'm excited to review that one as well. That will be another fun, short, casual one, just because, why not? It's fun, it balances out the longer, more serious novels, more in-depth novels, all the stuff. So, the final one, this is actually one that I just got over the holidays, and I've already looked through a lot and enjoyed, so I wanted to add it to the list because this is just such a cool book, and I love the binding of this book as well. It's actually got holes all the way through it that are then bound with sort of thick cord or thread. This is haiku illustrated, so it is an absolutely beautiful book. And what I think is really cool about this is I have studied some Japanese in high school, a little bit in college, And I'm getting close to a 2,000-day streak on Duolingo, so I'm somewhat familiar with Japanese as a language and a bit as a culture as well. And so what I think is very, very cool about this is that each page, first of all, in the beginning, it does have an introduction about each of the poets that have haiku included in here. But what I like is that each page says the poet up here, says the years that they were alive, and then each one also has a picture that goes with it, but also it has it written in the hiragana, katakana, kanji here. It has the original Japanese text here for phonetically what it says, and then a translation here. And the translation does not try to keep the correct syllable pattern of a haiku, but it's still very, very fun to read what these mean. And I just love the art in it so much. And honestly, I feel like I could start reviewing it already right now just because what I've seen of it is amazing. There's certain poems in here that I found while I was looking through it after I got it, and my mom goes to a poetry reading book club thing, I think like once or twice a month. I don't actually remember how often, but there were a few in here that she was like, you need to write that down so that I can take that to my poetry group and share it, because some of them are just really funny, and I actually found one of them. There's a little spider right there, and this one is Sumi no kumo anji na susu o toranu zoyo, and it means spiders in the corners, fear not, I won't be dusting. And I love that so much. There are so many in here that are just absolutely amazing, and I cannot wait to review that as well. And this is a pretty long video for this channel, but I'm excited to be able to talk about all these and what I'm going to be reading this year. And I'm really excited with this list. I think I've got a good mix of fiction, non-fiction, different genres of fiction, and some just fun, casual dog poetry. So I'm really, really excited. Let me know what book you're excited for from this list, and let me know what you're planning to read in 2026, or if you're not sure yet, do you have a number goal of what you're hoping to read in this new year? And once again, Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a fun and safe holiday, and I cannot wait to hopefully get a lot of reading done this year. And I'm just excited to try and actually finish all my reading lists this year. So with that being said, I am going to end this here, but this is exciting. Thank you to everyone who participated in the polls about what books they wanted to see this year, because I'm definitely going to make sure that I try to finish those this year for sure, because those books are ones that people actually seemed to want. So I'm definitely excited. I need to go arrange this whole pile now after this, but thank you all so much. Let me know what you're planning to read, or how you experienced your reading list from last year. Did you finish it? Did you get through half of it? Did you not finish it but enjoyed what you read? Let me know. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe because it really helps me out. And keep reading. Bye!